Oh crap. I noticed something that the clutter on the board makes it hard to see. But Mars is +1, the asteroid belt's out at +3. That means I'm cheating because my crew range is still 1, which means all these CVs out here are illicitly exploring the asteroid belt. I'm going to leave it be, but it is definitely a problem. In particular, where it's really a big deal for. I'm not going to send anything else out there, but I'll let the ones that are there continue. But in particular, it's a big deal for South America. Actually, you know what? Let's just... let's just put everybody on Mars searching. Where it's particularly a big deal is for South America, where I thought I was going to be able to build a base out there, maybe. Because they've got a CV4 who can carry, they actually have 2 of them, who can carry 6 goods. And they also have reduced base costs, right? It's 1 point, not 2. But that means they could have built the 7-point base out here, and I thought that was all happening. Nah, I don't get that. I can go, however, and build a base for whatever it matters down on Venus. It's not really the most appealing place in the world to build a base, though. The card for Venus is not all that good. It doesn't have a lot of bonus research, or it doesn't have any bonus research. It does have bonus fuel and metal, which means I could actually produce a lot of fuel over on Venus, which maybe that's worthwhile. These other tiles like this are not particularly appealing. That's pretty good for iron. Produces 5 iron or ore. But yeah, there's not a whole lot that is going to change this turn. Not that I forgot to turn in a much more minor thing. I forgot to turn in my politics markers for money at the end of things. And yeah, that has to happen before the halving, so that just turns into cash. You wouldn't want to turn it into tech. The money's more valuable. Anyway, Asia's starting off building itself something to go fly to Eris. And then my next thing will be my rover to Europa. But no reason to jump that right away. That's radioactive. I don't have the shielding, so yeah, it's probably not going to last for all that long. A couple engine checks on these guys, just to make sure that they could do it. I'm not worried. But limited exploration happened out in the asteroid belt. I'm just going to leave be. But anyway, what did everyone build? Well, everyone launched something at Eris. And some of them, things like this slow flyby, which, you know, I'll get a couple of shots at it and then maybe make it out to Alpha Centauri, whatever. You know, let it be, see if it happens. It is the only thing out there that'll get, that counts as a mission right now that can be gotten from the general pool. So it's kind of in high demand. There are other places that are valuable, but what might be appealing for striking, I don't know, because you can get depletions, you can't get missions off telescopes, so we might see a growth of telescopes, but for the most part the players are saying, okay, we're all going to build a booster with something to go to Eris of one sort or another. A lot of flybys actually, but some people with probes basically sent something more likely to find it, and the best thing is a rover. So whatever. And the reason they built a booster on Earth, because just about anybody could have built it here, is they want that lift capability from Earth. So that's kind of appealing. There's no way to really get a booster somewhere else. You can't fly it somewhere. All it does is gives you the initial thrust. And I guess that's about it. One thing I wanted to point out, the Japanese still haven't built a crewed vehicle. And North America actually decommissioned theirs to get more materials to build up their base. So the big thing is the big rush out there. China lost their booster, everybody else is okay. And just shifting the crewed vehicles around as well. A couple landings, Russian and American there. It's time to do the exploration. As we move forward, we have some depletions. Now, one thing, Japan would really love to send a crew to Venus, explore it, maybe build the base there to build fuel or whatever. But they can't do that. The reason they can't is they don't have the strengthened hull or whatever that can put up with what is required there. Now, I don't know where that is in things. It's not the shielding for radiation. Pressure shell way up here. So, yeah, that's pretty far away, actually. But, yeah, they would like to do that. They have a Venus thing. They'll probably end up sending an orbiter or something around it just to watch it and see if they can get it. But their chances are kind of low. One depletion, I don't know. Anyway, we did get some depletions. You can see people have their points. Asia actually came close to finding life there. One interesting thing is these searches on Mars, they're decreasing the value there too. If the right card comes up, they could disrupt the entire production matrix on Mars, and that's something you have to kind of consider. Like, if you didn't invest in a very big mining station, like these guys have a large mining station, other people have a refinery, it might be worth decreasing the value of Mars, actually, which is kind of an intriguing thing, especially if you get a better chance of finding life there. So far, hasn't happened. All right, now it's base time. I did it before. Okay, so what we ended up doing was most of the nations improved their settlements, although a couple of them jumped up to the small refinery. The people improving settlements mainly because they're looking at, wow, I could buy a lot of material with cash that I have sitting around. That's a worthwhile plan. So like here, I'll be able to buy 4 items of this. So for $4 billion, I could get 8 iron up there. A trickier situation is over here with Russia, who's increased their settlements. They can sell a lot of fuel. I'm not sure that's really the best move, but yeah, I don't really need that big supply station yet. And then I also have to consider whether or not I have something that I can ship supplies to here, where I could sell some of them, and again, generate more income. What's the value of the income? Well, I can always lift it back up as materials again, but I can also use it for exploration, throw a telescope up, do some long-range stuff. It just seems worthwhile to keep building things up. We're getting close to sort of the max size of the bases other than settlements, and the settlements increase your production, so hey, what the hell, might as well, along with everything else. Alrighty. That is the end of the turn, and we spent 8 minutes on a turn. That's 80 minutes if I go through, plus the economic phase. You can see why the videos take so long. All right, part of the choices to build, one of the things I came across, Pakistan, the Asians are sending up to go after Europe, but right, okay, that's easy enough. But Europe, it's like, I got this big base here. Let me build a CV2 to replace the CV3 here and not decommission that. That isn't really what I need right now. Well, that doesn't quite work. The reason that it doesn't work is that I don't have a shipyard yet. All I have is a supply station. Over here. Yeah, I was working off the EU one. I just got confused in when my brain's fucked up today. The COVID shit is, if that's what it is, does weird things. Anyway, my choice was non-existent, and now I don't know. You know, am I just going to lift more shit? Do I want to buy these? Well, I'm at the 3 settlements, so it might be a good time to purchase a bunch of iron up there. I can buy the iron at this point. So anyway, I'm sending a telescope up, whatever. Got good ones. Similarly for Japan. So this is an issue that I keep running into. You know, do you want to buy a low-level booster or take your chance on sending something big up? And in both cases, they're sending a bigger booster up. It's a really iffy question, because this one less than that. Let me, yeah, I'm low on money though. So being low on money with him means he can't, you know, not only does he not have a lot to spend on that additional booster, but he's not going to be boosting as much crap up. So that's kind of a concept as well. Well, both are going to take their chances, I guess. Out of it, the North Americans have decided most definitely they are not going to spend a lot on boosting a telescope. They don't want to risk. The luck has been too bad on boosting a telescope up, so they're putting a level 1 booster. Just interesting things. Asia got a total failure on their launch. We got a mechanical engineering. Halfway through the exploration, nothing too exciting has happened except for failures way out here where it's really expensive to get things. You know, loss of equipment, not succeeding in your missions. That's painful because those are expensive missions to launch. At the turn, nothing too exciting. I think in the research area would have come back, or the exploration area would have come back. A lot going on in the building, and I don't know what the fuck's going on. You know, once upon a time that would be a wedding that I'm hearing, but I don't know if this is like the riots coming up or something. It's hard to tell these days. So like South America increasing their settlements with the intention of, hey, I got something that lets me buy stuff cheaply. Let's buy a bunch of material up there. Maybe next decade I'll be able to sell that material if I stockpile it. Or it means stuff I don't have to boost. So I'm working on getting the settlements up so that purchase can go. And you'll see a number of people have done that. A number of people increasing their refineries. We had both the EU build a spaceport, which allows them to build their CV2, which is better. And so I can do that decommissioning trick next turn. And the Russians did something similar. So they built up their settlements, I think. No, they built up their refinery. But they're planning on decommissioning as well, because there's something interesting happening near Mars. Remember, we were cheating and going over to the main asteroid belt before. But that's because Mars is kind of tapped out. And both, well, EU wants to get a better shot at Mars. We'll talk about that in a moment. Russia sees no point in having manned exploration anymore. Exploration of the moon is still viable. So, I don't know. Maybe I should be, but we didn't aim for it particularly. It's just not that rich, you know. I mean, it's got a low chance of life, you know. It's kind of a, well, I can expend my money on better things like building up my settlements. For the EU and Asia, however, they have, no, not Asia, EU and South America they have basically one chance to get this. Once that depletes again, those counters go away, and never to return unless that goes up before, as far as I can tell by the rules. It can go up after it hits 0, but the counters won't return, and they certainly won't return in the right hands. So for the EU, it's particularly important to get this slightly better explorer up there. Yes, they could get their military explorers up there, but nobody's going to war, so no big deal there. For South America, well, they've got their crewed vehicle out there. They might get lucky, next turn before the EU gets up there. They get to go before. Now, I don't know what else to say. So I will say no more. My short-term memory is the hard part here. And that seems to be what's kind of most going. Okay, but let's take a look at what we are doing nation by nation, just going down the chain, not necessarily in their order. U.S. is replacing its mission and boosting some crap because what else is a level 1 for? Russians replacing their mission. I did choose to go back to the moon. What the hell? Europe boosting some garbage and did the replacement swap. China, just some garbage boosted. A lot of this is, I'm tinkering around with, hey, what do I want to build? What am I able to buy when it comes to the end of the turn? Pakistan replacing their mission to Europa. Japan throwing a telescope up. Yeah, that's an expensive one. I don't have a lot of cash left to move things. Yeah, I've got some cash coming to me. I want to update those settlements, get them up to the 5 level, just sell a bunch of fuel and then shoot it back up if I need it. Fuel is less necessary than supplies are probably the most valuable, although not for a supply station, but for its results. And then kind of looks like South America said, yeah, I'm good. They'd have to build a booster to launch anything. Yeah, they have a bonus on launching stuff, but I'd rather see what opportunities come up, what comes up out of exploration here. Give it a little time. I don't have a whole lot of money. There are multiple ways to get yourself able to explore further out more cheaply. Sort of that multiple paths to victory. Well, multiple paths to further exploration at the very least. Multiple paths to victory. There's no question. Nothing this complex will not have that. It emerges from the complexity itself. The nice thing is, most of this complexity, this is not as Euro as I was worried. So like Space Core was very Euro feeling. This doesn't feel that way. This feels like a streamlined, cut certain details out of High Frontier and make an easier to play game out of it, which is a nice spot to be in. I like both. I like all 3 games actually, but Space Core gets crappy at the end. This may too. It may get too big. High Frontier kind of does too, just because you're building up, you're snowballing. It starts getting painful to hold everything in mind. But the multiple paths that I'm talking about, so for example, you can work on getting your bases out. And that's going to get you, and it's more expensive, but it's worth victory points, and it's going to get you further and further out where you can launch cool shit, from your base instead of from Earth. On the other hand, or concurrently, you can work on getting your engine better and building bigger boosters to use to throw things further out. So, that's why this EU rover that came out at the same time as everyone else's is well ahead of it. As this starts getting much, much better, wow, the speeds to get out to very far distances become pretty low. And the heavier booster reduces that further. Using a heavier booster becomes less and less valuable as your engine gets more impressive. But anyway, it's just sort of a glimpse into that tech tree, kind of thing that I don't tend to provide very well. All right. Okay, last turn I forgot to try to do production with the Pakistan, or with the Asian, but I did have a reason for that, perhaps, which is to deprive a couple of people who seem to be very intent on Mars as well. I don't have a really good reason for it, though. I probably should have been trying to produce as well. My chances at Mars aren't very good. I don't know why I'm sticking around there, except maybe that sort of illicit knowledge. I'll leave it be. Bad turn for telescopes. 2 of them went down. You get a lot of telescopes out there, they start failing. Remember, the failure rate is still like 27% for most people, and there are people who are not, I think, up there. Yeah, there's quite a few who are not up there. 27% for a handful, and 25 for Japan, 30 for everyone else. So there's still a fair chance that these robotic explorations are going to fail. And nothing else exciting onto base. Overall, a big rush to settlement is happening, basically to take advantage of the trade counters. But it's also going to boost production. So it's a good thing, you know, it's a really good thing. I'm actually kind of intrigued by the idea of trying to increase the settlement here to increase the tech bonus. Yeah, I'm not, you know, I'm getting 3 tech from Earth, which then goes to 6 for the large research station, but I could start increasing that. That's, you know, biology is really important at this point. That's sort of the blocking point for a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, even engineering, you know, we'd like to get out to the destroyers and whatever, but it feels like it's this path down here that's preventing me from that cross between the physics and biology, where we can start getting better crew ranges and stuff. That is really attractive. So there's a draw towards that, and the fact that I have something that can only be producing tech. I can't produce materials out in space. What about nanotech? Yeah, you know, that stuff. You can build it anywhere in the vacuum, so you don't need to count it in, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, that kind of aspect is kind of a draw. I don't know if it's worth reducing my effort on improving what I'm building on Mars, though, because that's what the cost is, right? Having 2 bases means I have to build them both up. But on the other hand, I could also sell more shit, but that shit I have to ship there, so I don't know how valuable that is. I really wish I had gotten a buy token there. That's the end of the turn, and I hope I moved the year marker. One real advantage of me moving it like one at a time is that I know that I've moved it. So yeah, I think I did 2 turns today. That would mean I started here, and I think that's where I was. So yeah, again, short-term memory, it's just fading. For example, there was something I really wanted to touch on, and I've essentially said this before, but in comparison to, say, High Frontier, by being in this middle ground, one thing it does, High Frontier gives you a lot more detail. And you'd say, well, that's more story, right? Yeah, not exactly. So this gives you a broader scope of the story. And there's sort of a nice middle ground, you know, that this is falling into, where I can run through an entire sequence of a turn and see very clearly what's going on. Now, part of that's the map. The map here is just, you know, here are the planets, they're laid out, you got your bases, you can see I'm here. At some point I expect to start seeing bases all over the place and really get a really nice view of as the exploration and exploitation continues. You don't see that in High Frontier. you're constantly focusing in on trying to get those little rockets to move where they're supposed to move and shit like that, and you're zooming in on such minutia in the game that it loses a lot of the aspect. And I could see this, an expansion on this where interesting things are discovered. So this is kind of the thing. The tech chart, this is where I'm less excited. The text chart in this is sort of a fixed thing. It's not based on what cool shit you find. Whereas in High Frontier, there's the cool shit factor. Hey, I drew a card. I finally got a planet working that has that special resource that, it was really hard to align my cards with my resource and everything. I like that sort of thing. The part that I don't really like is that you draw the card and you know what kind of planet you want to go to, and then you design for that. As opposed to kind of we don't know exactly everything we're going to find here. We may have some hypotheses, etc. So, some of that is represented by, hey, you can build a research base, and maybe if the production isn't that great, at least you'll be getting, tech advance somewhere. I think it's pretty important, to some extent, to have bases to have what the Russians have, which is a research base and a production base, to begin with. And then, your settlement, well, you want to increase that, and it's, a curve that increases rapidly and then levels out, sort of a logarithmic type curve. And I haven't really looked at it to see how well it fits that. But which means that there's some point where increasing your settlements by boosting more and more crap up there, or by spending your crap, is not worthwhile. And what you really want to do is open up new bases. And, the new base gives you a big boost, especially if you're talking about something like this. But anyway, the main point that I was trying to get to was this sort of more gestalt view without losing enough detail to make the story interesting. I'm able to see this sort of planet by planet exploration. I don't know. There's a lot more interest in this to me than there is in Space Corps. And then Space Corps eventually gets too painful for managing the Euro fashion of it, and you lose the story completely. You get a good story in the first 2 boards of it, and then that 3rd board, you're prefiguring too much shit and trying to calculate out victory points and all that, and you lose the story aspect of it. For this, I feel like following the story probably gets you to the victory points, and that's how a game should be, man. A little bit of focus on parsimony here, see what develops, etc. Remember, money that I spend now is, well, it can get me some exploration, and that's where we're seeing some divergence. So, for example, Asia is doing nothing this turn with their money. They're planning on upgrading their settlement, and then the turn after buying a bunch of iron. They don't have a whole lot of money. They'll be able to buy 6 iron. That only leaves them $2 left. So not really much to play with, in some cases we have people sending stuff up. Japan's sending a flyby. This is where groupthink comes into play, I think. First, I think the EU made this decision. Basically, throw a flyby over here and see what I can find on the way. There's some areas down here that are pleasant to take a look at. Japan may not send theirs all the way to Mercury. I think the EU is planning on that. Japan wants to maximize their chance on Venus, but then they'll just continue on, in terms of hitting the next most valuable places that they can do searches on. And, might end up skipping these 2 because they're kind of panned out, and then going up to the asteroid belt where there's still some interesting values, and just keep going. Other people boosting shit into space. Chinese are sending their telescope back up. I said it was a bad turn for telescopes. I don't remember who else lost one. Somebody else lost a 2-point telescope. It looks like Japan, but they decided on the flyby instead. Gives them slightly better chances for close-in work. Telescope's kind of nice, but here's the point. If I'm going to use a 4-point booster, I might as well. And this is kind of the thing. I might as well go for here because I'll get an extra shot, but I don't know. You kind of have no choice on what to use your money for. But at this point, the cost of exploration is kind of becoming iffy. So for example, the EU's flyby broke. Well, that was a fair amount of money, enough to make a base improvement, right? And I basically got 2 points of mechanical off of it. I succeeded, but you know, the cost of boosting these things up is too high, and it looks like I forgot to boost Russian stuff to the base that I ought to just jump back and take care of. Oops. Make sure there aren't any other such mistakes. But anyway, that was exploration. Now we're on the base control. And what I do with these is I slide them down for one step and then back up for the next. And it's working out so that they always end up at the end of the turn up there. Just based on, you know, there may be, I think I'm hitting all the major steps there. One thing with bases is I'm kind of doing the trade with the bases and the build and expand at the same time. That I don't mean that I can kind of jiggle their ordering. So I built a settlement here. I can't now buy the 6 purchase orders that I have available. That's not allowed. It's just handling the two together works fine. And now I position up here after building that settlement. And Asia is done for this turn. They've done all the steps. It's just, sometimes there's some shorthand. So you might find, oh, geez, I'm always ending up on the odd side. You know, this is alternating and it's not working right for me. It works fine as long as you combine those two and maybe a couple of other places where you're basically doing things that aren't influencing other people particularly. There's been a big increase in settlements. A lot of people are up to 5. I think everybody's up to 5 except the US, North America, who are at 3, and that's where they want to be to do their purchase. They don't have a whole lot of money. They don't have a lot of resources to shift up. So they will be buying a bunch of supplies. We did see one person who made their 5 settlements, and they cashed in $6 billion for 12 iron, and also increased their refinery at the same time. So now, you know, they're kind of at their maximum build, which is +5 to all resources, plus another 1. This doesn't really help. That level 5 didn't really help the next level. So I was thinking that the resource increase by just putting bigger settlements in would be higher than it is in my head. And I moved the year marker, I believe. Never sure what I'm doing anymore. Okay. One thing that I've noticed, I had this tray up at top. I'm actually using this tray more often now. So I'm going to put it on top, see how that works. And this one I have to pull over. Basically, the weird thing is when I need this is when I need that, which is when I'm playing with the bases. But I also need that when I am building ships, obviously. And so this is actually less valuable in general, I think, than this one. So I'll just shift this over here, because this is really only useful at one time, except if I find life or do a big long shift. I've got my damage markers in that too, which maybe belong somewhere else, because I got my asteroids and pirates in this, which is really not coming up very often. That's once a decade they show up. But anyway, possibly. All right, so on to the next turn, I guess. The nations just boosting shit up. Not all of them. Japan and North America choosing to pass. Other people who don't have boosters choosing to pass. Basically, we don't have enough to convert. Now, Japan's going to have a whole bunch of money very soon because they're going to sell a bunch of fuel. But Russia is going to build up their settlements here. Their intention for that is, well, first they're lifting the stuff to sell, but they're going to build up their settlement there a little bit. Their intention to get it up to the 3-4 level so that they can increase their tech research production by 1. At least that's my thought in head, but one thing, I want to clear that counter out of there. I'm also planning on selling some of the ore that's sitting here. Again, get a pile of cash. Then I'll be open to doing things like maybe throwing a flyby out or something to see what happens. But we're not too impressed with what happened to the European one. All right, on to move. EU and South America returned their crude vehicles back for some rest and relaxation. Not DNR. Wrong game. And the EU had a booster failure, complete failure, lost the resources, got themselves an engineering chit. Ooh. I also rationalized my counters a little bit, moved to the shit over here. That's pretty unlikely to be used. Whereas I got the search for life and these extended movement counters, which I find myself pulling more often. If I'm going to have that way out there, I almost never want to touch it. I got to do some work on how I have my bases organized, because I just sorted them by type, more or less, and did not worry about the simple fact that some of the upgrades. So, you know, like the small, the large supply station turning into a spaceport, and the mining stations turning into refineries. I was just doing it as I was popping the counters and putting them away, rather than thinking in terms of what upgraded to what particularly. And some point I'll take care of that. It's time to look for stuff. Too exciting was discovered. Japanese choosing to do the flyby to catch the moon, because it's so unlikely to see anything up here. So, yeah. Oh, I have a spectrometer. I'm actually not bad at that either. Ooh. But yeah, you know, not catching this. We had some failures. Who cares? You know, they happen. The EU actually, I think, came real close to getting a failure. Was it them? Someone came real close, like, oh no, it was this rover, this Asian rover. And currently the rating, the basic malfunction is 27, it's plus 10 for the radiation, put it to 37, I rolled a 38. Like, ooh, bonus. Get to keep searching, because that's one of my goals, you know. All right, and bases. As recent turns have been turns about getting the settlements up, this was the turn where just about everybody had their settlements where they wanted them and cashed in, either to get more money, and in the case of Russia, a lot more money. They sold from both. It means the spaceship can't unreserve next turn. That's okay. I could either dismantle it for parts, which I don't think I want to do. Although, what are the parts? That's 3 iron, of supply, and a fuel. That would help me get to the place where I could up my settlements. You know, I need to get basically 10 resources up there to up my settlement. We'll see if we get around to that. Because here's the thing, this is not my best ship for what's going on. There's these 5-point ships that I could actually build here that are a little bit better for pure exploration and might be more appealing. And we also cashed in here, and honestly I think I upgraded to a large refinery, but I'm not absolutely positive. Other people definitely definitely bought resources and built their way up. So we have a spaceport here now. Got a spaceport here. North America finally got to the large refinery to get maximum production, which is kind of nice. And that pushes us. Hey, I definitely remembered this time. All right. And we're ready to rock into the next turn, I guess, but I'll take a break. It's kind of, the game's getting lighter, both due to familiarity, but also because not so many damn robotic explorations going on. Boosting stuff into space, building the bases, all that takes a little bit less energy. So it's speeding up quite a bit. People just lifting more materials up. Asia, an exception. Kind of doing nothing. They have no money. What the hell? South America built themselves a little booster because they get their bonus. They get to lift 2 materials. They get to build a $2 thing to lift 2 materials. Basically, however big a booster they build, that's how much material they can lift. I can get the rest of my money up here, which seems valuable if I do that. America and China lost their booster. It's not a good payoff if you're going to lose your booster when you do it. I mean, it's not a good payoff, whatever, if you build the booster for it. China had their booster. Wow, they have a lot of research. So does North America, actually, although theirs is all focused on the physics, and I'm not sure where they're getting it from other than their telescope. They had something before over on Triton, sorry. Telescope depletions out here. Nothing too exciting happened, though. Across the board. Not even failures. Most part, people increased their space stations this turn for builds for whatever reason. The groupthink thing. But it kind of follows, if you're trying to make sure that you have the resources for the ships, you have everything. Well, you want to concentrate on getting the production up and to get your trades up with the settlements. And right now, everybody's left with a lot of stuff. They can't build their production up directly. Yeah. 3 more settlements would get another resource per. It's hard to tell that that's really all that valuable, though. Let those grow kind of as they will. I'm not looking to grab. Where that really becomes valuable is for victory points, where it goes up. So, getting incremental small amounts of resources off of getting your base up to size 8 doesn't seem terribly important. And that's one reason that the U.S. is only at settlements 3. The one thing that's been that made everybody go up to 5 was the trade markers. They could buy a bunch more goods or sell a bunch more goods and turn that money around a little better. Yeah, but otherwise the idea of building up spaceports seems appealing because then we can launch big crude ships coming out of Mars, which is good. And fuck, I don't know if I moved it. The fact that the Chinese were down tells me I probably didn't. Oh, is there a way I can calculate from here? What got sent out when? This may have got sent out on the first turn. Means it's moved 5 times. I think I'm in the right place. I think this was all the way over on the 12 box, and that means I've moved 5 times, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I don't know. No. This was the one that got sent out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, I think I'm in the right space actually. So that's cool. That's still a lot of turns left in this decade. So I've done my builds for people, what they're sending forward all the way across, and nothing too exciting. Most people aren't doing anything. We got a little bit of liftoff going on. Up here, the Russians are going to send a flybot a flyby out, because then I can lift resources to throw stuff, to my bases, maybe get these settlements up so I get that extra research. I get a couple turns to do it, so that's kind of cool. The one person with enough money that they're actually like, wow, I'm glad, this decade keeps going. Everybody else, though, is largely tapped out. Japan has some cash. They're still lifting stuff, though. But I come to China, and I'm thinking, all right, great. I need to send a rover to Ganymede. I got room for that. That's fine. But I have two options. This is sort of the first player where I've had a choice so I have 4 iron and a fuel. I'd still need a booster. Now, if I got the biggest booster from Earth, that would be in a level 4. Unfortunately, that would cost me 4, 5, 10. I only have 8. So I could build at most a level 2 booster from there, which means maybe it would behoove me to actually build something here. Now, I have enough that I could build the rocket coming from here. The problem with that is that, I could actually toss some extra cash in. The problem with that is that I don't have the lift capability on Earth that I want. And Earth is still where all the money is coming from. Moving that money from Earth somewhere else. Yeah, I can move 5 a turn with the trade routes, 5 a decade with the trade routes, but that's nothing compared to, the amount of money that's being produced, and that's going up. So I think I'm going to build my rocket from Earth all the same, even though I have the capacity to build from here. CVs building them in space makes more sense because you don't even need a liftoff for them if it's not from Earth. And on the exploration, nothing too exciting happening until Russia decides to take a chance. China already refused to on the bonus jet, and they succeeded. Didn't find life, but got the big enough chit. Got themselves some political stuff. Russia's doing really well. At this point, people may want to consider that Russia may actually be leading. The fact that they were able to get this pool of money to boost themselves up, they're in kind of a scarier position than I think anyone else. And some words are beginning to be said around the table at this point, I think. It's also got a successful depletion over there. No, actually, yeah, I think they did. I think they went for that one. Other people went to this when they became equal, but a 5% chance of life bonus kind of doesn't really outweigh the, hey, an extra 1% of getting a depletion. The chance of life requires the depletion, and you want that. You want to be more likely to draw chit in general. So, other than that, we had something else interesting. Oh, yeah. We had another missed by 1 with this rover in terms of being damaged. And that is the end of exploration. So we're back, we're all the way to bases already. And we fill things out, move to the marker. If I don't do it in the camera, I lose track. And a little bit more building. The EU, maybe the most interesting of them, built up my settlement above 5. I got to get it up to 8 for it to make a difference, but it's a big difference. And it just worked out that made more, well, that was possible where the large spaceport was not. And I'm not going to be able to lift more materials, but I'm not going to get anything growing anymore. But that gives me another 10% chance of growing the settlement another pip. So that's kind of sweet, to tell you the truth. A lot of people not able to build though. All right, let's jump to the next one. There's no one playing in the builds phase anymore. South America got their crew back online. I'm assuming, even with the large space port, that I can't afford to decommission this and build something else. Nor do I see something else that's really appealing. Their ship's gonna suck, to tell you the truth. And Russia still boosting stuff up. They're gonna work on trying to get that settlement up here so they get the extra research. I think that's worthwhile. I guess the biggie on this side, some people testing things out, like the Russians tested their luck again here, but the North Americans did as well, and they succeeded in a depletion, which is pretty cool, but they lost their flyby at the same time. And they also lost their telescope without gaining anything other than the booby prize of the engineering chit. So not a, I don't know, kind of a mixed turn for them. I can't say that flyby is a bad thing. Getting a depletion is pretty cool. You get an extra politics marker. You got a decent counter there, and you know, how much longer was that thing going to last? You know, I mean, yeah, sure, I could make it out to Alpha Centauri and maybe get something there, but whatever that something is isn't very clearly valuable at this point. And the other side is yeah, I don't know what else I had to say. Exploration other than capturing some chits, etc. The EU lost their telescope as well, so there's no more left in space. And it's base building. Are down enough that basically no bases got built. We moved it. Some people had a chance to raise settlements. They chose not to. They think the EU is kind of being silly with that. So, for example, Asia could have raised another settlement, but they're like, you know, those resources are probably more valuable for building a ship or something. We'll see. The production isn't that huge. I'd rather be able to build something out there because I'm all stacked up. For Russia, I wasn't able to build this settlement because the materials I have, some of them are required for flipping that ship. But I'm preparing myself so that I can build twice. What it means, though, is that I'm probably not going to get the large spaceport built. Unless I want to build another booster, which I don't. That's fine. I don't need that on the first turn. Although we ought to be keeping an eye. Sedana here. So this is Sedana. That's very likely to be up here, which means, because currently everybody has their mission allocated to them. Now somebody could pay to exchange or something like that and grab it. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think there's time. I don't think you can jump in the middle of like when that's getting assigned. But it may be in the pool temporarily. I don't know. I think you should have to have a turn in order to be doing it of some sort. But anyway, otherwise people might dice off for it. But what that means is the rovers and such not may be aiming for Sedana instead, just to get that mission marker. Although this has the +5 search for life. That's not as good as the mission marker, but it's not bad. And yeah, we're on to another turn, I guess. We'll just keep rocking. Nothing was built. A lot of things are arriving, so there's going to be a lot of movement rolls this turn. Some chance of breakdown. We'll see. Caught myself fucking up with one of the misprints. I had to really make some kind of little sticker for this. This is actually an engineering space, even though it looks like physics on the image. If I was really good, I could make a little sticker or something. But anyway, the U.S. ended up getting a depletion on it. And they've been drawing physics markers because they've been looking there. It's just so much easier to see things by this. There are a couple of them that are misprinted. No, not that one. It's really hard to see. You know, basically you're looking for a mismatch between this and this, And, you know, I mean, is it that terrible? Well, there may be a game balance issue in it, but I don't really care about it. But it does mean that I got my Triton mission complete. And I forgot to take the extra politics marker for that. I did not get life there. Oh well. The EU also got a success. This one's correctly in physics. I found another one that's broken. They're listed somewhere. This one looks like physics, says engineering. It is engineering. I'll do whichever one if I remember to check, I'll do it. But in general, I'm going to do it by the image, whether that's erroneous or not, whatever cost there is. So the EU pulled the last chip out of the physics pile with, I don't know, probably over here. And they did not get a depletion. But since it was the last chip, all the chips went back in. And here's what we've got. The US had 28. They had a huge pile of big point things, mainly taken from Triton, I would guess. The Chinese are next, but the Chinese had a pool. They were in this 13 range, so they gained what everyone else kind of did who gained big. You can see some people like Asia did not gain, but Russia and the EU had big piles of physics chits. And it's on to the base. Who seems to be playing anymore is Russia with their big pile of cash. They built up their settlements and are launching in this final year of the decade the materials to get that up to 3. That gets them an extra point of biology. Ooh. But, whatever. I mean, honestly, what can you do? The only other answer is I could have tried to build that large spaceport. Other people just don't have the cash or the opportunity, so. And we're going to get this in close to an hour, I think, after we do the economics. So we're beginning to do better. But the game is going to get more complex later on. We're in this kind of middle section, I think. Let's call it the donkeys. Where I think we're looking at that initial base building, a lot of liftoffs, etc. for that. That's costing something, but once there's lots of bases, once there's ships moving around, once there's combat and everything, we may not be able to be doing these in one video anymore. Exciting in the movement, but I wanted to jump in to say something, which is what? South America, their ship, it wasn't flipped. Maybe it was. Yeah, it didn't just move. So I kind of screwed up. I should have built a rocket to refuel it. I didn't. I'll let it go. But they're now in kind of the same position as the EU. Neither of them are exploring Mars right now. They're both holding the Mars chip. It's kind of an interesting thing. So EU, South America, and Japan are all sitting on 1-point exploration tiles. They would love to find another mission. But the missions are trickling in. They're just not easily available. South America did decide to jump over to here. The EU had an extra turn. I'm not going to do a search this time. I'm going to save my probe. That may mean that some of these flybys might hit me, but they're probably more interested in that +5 search for life that the EU got attracted to. Exploration, the EU was kind of dicky. They reduced the search for life chance here. Now that reduced their own chance as well, but they had lost their rover and said, okay, screw it. Somebody else is out here. I don't know how wise that is. They had a 1% better chance before, but they just thought it was dicky. We have this thing way out here at Alpha Centauri, and I don't understand how Alpha Centauri works, so I got some time to look that up at some point. A few successes. Nobody got a mission, I don't think. Wait. North America does not have their Triton mission. If I haven't announced that before, they got that. But I think that was last turn. One thing I wanted to point out, the last 2 turns, the Russians have been mining the moon as well as exploring it. which is kind of cool because they have that hardier crew. So they only have a 35% failure rate, which, my chances of success on exploration aren't all that great. Might as well start grabbing some stuff, We're moving into the economic phase, and I am going to take a bit of a break there. Ooh, that one's worth 5, damn. Do they just keep getting better? 5's about as good as they get. That's not a CV. Pluto's got a CV out there. Good luck with that shit. All right. Yeah, and I'll come back and do the economic in a bit. Try to get everything right this time. I collected my politics markers, and now it's a quick roll for the events. 41, that's not too high. Private freight company. The player with the fewest settlements can transfer 5 resources this turn as if they had the trade routes. Or if they have the tech, they can increase their capacity by 5. Okay, who's got the fewest settlements? That's going to be the U.S. With only 3. Everybody else has at least a 5, I believe. So they're going to have a big extra 5-point transfer. And mark that with this in their thing, because that'll allow them to ship more stuff up to their base at Redstone. What's next? Next is my initiative payoff. Oh boy, everybody's got a lot of politics markers. Got 2 people who have intrinsic benefits that are worth a lot of politics markers. So this is worth spending 4 politics markers each turn. That's pretty big, actually. I got to think about what people's points are, technology-wise, and whether or not they want a boost. People are ponying up for extras. North America, with their big physics points, decided to throw 1 in. The EU says, I got a decent amount of points on a lot of things. They threw 2 in. I don't know how big a deal it is because they're kind of in the lead on everything, but not here. And if other people push forward in that, that's going to be particularly advantageous for us. Well, actually, there's a couple of places where they're not. So, yeah, I don't think it's terrible for them to do this. They threw in 2 politics points. I'll make the rolls. It's not particularly good for the people who spent. But they're very good for China and South America. Nice high rolls. Japan got a high roll as well. Yeah, spending these things, it's painful. I just gave up a fair amount of tech for, oh look, I'm in last place still, for 2 tech. Ouch. Policy-wise, China is saying, look, don't put the whole burden on me because I can go to war. And South America is kind of like, well, it shouldn't just be on the 2 of us. The feeling generally being, if Russia's really running away with this at all, we should, as the combined nations of the world, work together to get to being able to make military choices. And right now, taking that whole burden on by like China doesn't seem really fair. It seems like a way to drag China and Russia down. If South America joins in, well, maybe, but are they really? They're not the only ones that are going to. They're going to be the ones that will lose from it rather than gain. There's not that much of a gain to going to war with someone. So that's painful, and the same kind of considerations go for trying to move the trade value up. It's just like I'm not seeing any huge advantage to it. Again, there might be an advantage to it if there's, a military alliance or something like that. But in terms of just getting the collaboration level or something, I don't know. I'm not really seeing it. It's just 1 billion credits. That's what you're spending to try to get there. There's a chance that you drop down each turn anyway. And yeah, it's just, I'm looking for some discussion of these capabilities, but the trade capability, yeah, sure, if you're able to deliver the goods, but in general, players have their own trade chits they can manage, and getting one for someone else, well, if we had significantly different production, sure, but everybody's got their Mars production going on. So yeah, I don't think any diplomacy is going to happen at all. And that takes us to our production point. The Martian colonies, even for the U.S., who, aren't that big, but there are only 3 settlements. No one's getting better than that, though, right now. Well, yeah. Are producing about as much income as is being produced on Earth. That's an interesting thing. We're kind of reaching a tipping point where the ships being produced out in space is starting to make more sense. Even though I still got to lift this money up. Or pull a trade, use it for trade counters. But yeah, to a large extent, I think exploration is going to start coming from those bases. Resources in tech have been allocated. Everybody's resources look pretty much the same. They're cash there. I haven't done the transfers yet. Those are going to require a little bit of thinking. But basically, everybody gets to move $5 from Earth up into their base. And what's really interesting is the Russians can kind of move stuff to here. It's not going to cost a boost, and that's kind of cool because this boost is expensive to here in terms of it's instantaneous to either one, but it's better to send stuff to here. But this is also instantaneous, so who cares? Just babbling. But what is interesting is that I might have a very specific amount that I want to get up here, which might actually be that 5, right? 1, 2. No, it's more than 5 that I gotta send up there. So I might be saving a 4-point boost to send up there just to get the settlements, but I don't want to get it to 5. Yeah, I don't care. My research station slipped. This is actually a bit of a danger with it. And I'm safer with the research station showing there. They are kind of crowded, and there's a lot of information and pieces in them. Another thing is the names on them, they end up covered up. As we get more bases, it's going to be tougher. And then in terms of research, we see what's going on kind of in general. One of the weaker players, the South Americans, don't have a very good research setup. The Asians are pretty bad, except they have good biology, and biology right now seems to be the most important thing. It's my edge to here. But because I don't have much physics, I'm not getting space flight, which is okay. If I can extend one more space, I can get out to the asteroid belt. So should be able to get there. And I think we're ready for the next thing, which is the transportation, and then I make the roll for stuff, which I have to pay attention. There's a year somewhere on these. Oh, crap. I know I found it. Let's look here. Okay. I found the year before, and now I can't find it again. Oh, it's like invisible somewhere. It's in the flyby box, that's why. So 2070 is what we're going into, so that means the asteroid belt stuff could start showing up in. Yeah. And that's as far. This doesn't come until 2100. It's just too hard to get to Venus. Controls were too high out in here for the pirates and asteroids. Just making sure. Yeah, we were up in the 50s for the cheapest one, that's this one, and the 60s for the other one. So now it's time to play with the technologies. And ouch, but yeah. And the US is at the bottom of the list, so they got to start buying first. Russia managed to win the little tech mini game here by delaying as long as possible, and they got the crew range of 2. No one else was able to do it. If they had not been able to delay quite so long, other people would have been able to play into it, but yeah, they were basically able to hold off, buy crap back here, and get themselves into a position where they're the only ones who can go form a colony on the asteroid belt. And again, they're looking further and further like they're ahead, which may mean it's time for people to start, playing in the military realm. Because obviously just China and South America is not enough, apparently. 2 settlements grew, which is kind of weird. We had a lot of 5s out there for that. Notably, Europe went from a 6 to a 7, and Japan went up from a 5 to a 6. And again, that 6 to a 7 is kind of big because that means they can drop up to the 8 and get more production next turn or next decade. What's left is policy play. Everybody's joined into the military race. The US's first disclaimer was, you know what? I'm doing the worst in this game. It's your guys' problem. Well, Japan kind of followed suit with that. And so what do we have here? South America joined up to be able to declare war. Both Pakistan and Europe agreed to. But Russia, of course, isn't involved in this. Russia went up to increase their base support limits so they can get that 3rd base out in the asteroid belt, which they can now build. And who else? Well, most of the influence has been on getting these political markers up. Japan had a hard call they were considering because they'd like to get to this policy. But here's the thing, getting the technology bonus off of those three-point political markers, that's just so awesome. That everybody's kind of heading in that direction. Even China is kind of along the lines of, well, I think I'll go for that instead of the military bonus, although that +1 to combat rolls might be doing that. If we're going to war next turn, might be more valuable than trying to push the politics marker up higher. Right. That means, we're in 2070, and this video can go up. Part of the reason I wanted to get the rest of the decade in or whatever today, almost the whole decade. I gotta go shopping tomorrow. That makes it almost like a weekday for me in terms of, it's gonna fucking wipe me out. But okay. So sending it up. Oh, yeah, I wanted to talk a little about the tech that I didn't. So yes, the Russians grabbed the life support. That's the big one. But look here. There's four nations now that have the CV4s, and notably Russia's not one of them, which means there's people who are gaining a benefit in the military realm that when the declarations of war come next decade or whatever, Russia's going to have a harder time coping with them than maybe they would otherwise. There's nothing they can do to really negate this except maybe fail miserably. I mean, they can't trade something away. They can't cut deals. One thing they can do, though, is they can expend their politics markers to avoid war by trying to reduce, by trying to change embargoes or war status backwards. Now, of course, that's somewhat dependent on the initiative order. And in particular, let's see, China and South America, the two who are most able to hurt them in terms of the status that they're allowed to go to, are early in the initiative right now. That will not be the case necessarily, because initiative happens before the diplomacy. But, the people with high war values are the more able to force the war. Just something to keep in mind. Some of the other stuff, people going a little faster. EU is geared up for war. That's one of the reasons they went for it no matter what. And yeah, they have That doesn't help. The Russians did build one thing, the fighter drones, which kind of helps their position. Just making sure they're not stacked in there, because there's a limited number of counters total. All right, I guess this is probably it for tonight. Let's set this up.